Prime Minister Narendra Modi was standing beside Norway's Prime Minister when a Norwegian journalist asked a question that has now travelled across the world. Prime Minister, why don't you take some questions from the freest press in the world? That question came from Norwegian journalist Helle Svensson.
Prime Minister Modi, why don't you take some questions from the freest press in the world?
No shouting, no dramatic confrontation, no political slogan. Just one direct question from a journalist representing a country consistently ranked among the freest in global press freedom rankings. And the contrast was impossible to miss. Norway remains one of the highest ranked countries in the World Press Freedom Index. India today stands at 157. Now, whether one agrees with these rankings or not is a separate debate. But the question itself was simple. Why does India's Prime Minister rarely take unscripted press questions? In most mature democracies, this would have remained an ordinary political moment. A journalist asks, a leader responds or refuses. The media debates the answer. The story moves on. But in India, something very different happened. Soon after the interaction, Helle Svensson posted on X, "It is our job to question the powers we cooperate with." Again, a perfectly normal statement for any journalist in any democracy. But what followed next perhaps revealed more about India's political culture than the original question itself. Large sections of Indian social media did not debate press freedom. They did not discuss accountability. They did not ask whether Indian journalists today get enough access to the Prime Minister. Instead, the attacks became personal. Some called her anti-India. Some mocked Norway itself. Others accused her of being part of a Western propaganda ecosystem trying to insult India. Think about how strange this has become. A journalist asks a Prime Minister a question, and thousands react as though the nation itself has been attacked. Somewhere along the way, questioning the government and insulting the country have become merged together in public discourse. And that is deeply dangerous for any democracy. Because governments and nations are not the same thing. A prime minister is not the nation. A ruling party is not the country. Questioning power is not betrayal. In fact, questioning power is one of the strongest signs that democracy is alive. India once had a very different political culture. Prime ministers faced difficult press conferences. Journalists interrupted them. Opposition leaders cornered governments publicly. Tough interviews were seen as normal democratic exercises. Leaders defended themselves. Journalists challenged them. Sometimes governments looked uncomfortable. Sometimes journalists went too far. But democracy functioned noisily, imperfectly, yet openly. Today, however, something seems to have changed psychologically. The very act of asking difficult questions now triggers outrage, not just from political supporters. Even ordinary citizens increasingly appear uncomfortable with scrutiny of authority. And perhaps this is the real story here. Not that a Norwegian journalist questioned India's Prime Minister, but that many Indians now seem more disturbed by the question than by the absence of answers. That shift matters, because democracies do not decline suddenly in one dramatic moment. They weaken gradually. First, leaders stop engaging freely with the press. Then supporters begin defending the absence of accountability. Then questioning itself starts appearing suspicious. And eventually, silence becomes normal. A democracy does not become weaker only when leaders avoid questions. It becomes weaker when citizens themselves begin resenting questions. And that is what makes this moment significant. Not because one foreign journalist embarrassed India, but because a simple question exposed how fragile public comfort with democratic scrutiny may have become. At the end of the day, journalists are not supposed to behave like cheerleaders for governments. Their job is not to protect politicians from discomfort. Their job is to ask questions, especially uncomfortable ones. Because when questions disappear, accountability disappears quietly behind them. And once a society starts treating every question as an attack, democracy slowly stops being a conversation and starts becoming obedience.